It's another episode of Working Class on DeerCast. Don't even really know what number episode this one is, but Eric's in here co-hosting with me today.
I'm here.
And then Josh Sparks is here co-hosting and having a cold beverage. And the guest of the hour, Mr. Lee Herr. Thanks for joining us, man.
No problem. No problem. Thanks for having me.
Made it out to the studio. We've been talking about this one for a while now. We've been trying to get Josh out here since we went out and filmed all those podcasts at Mark's place last deer season, really, at this point.
Yeah.
Seems like a couple months ago, but it's been
like a lot longer than that.
a lot longer. But we're here in the Working Class Bowhunter studio with a giant buck on the studio table. And Lee, you have a story to tell, apparently.
Yeah, it's a story, all right. So started all back in 2019.
Who are you?
Oh, sorry.
You'll let the guy introduce himself or what?
I'm Lee Herr. Live in Central Iowa. Good buddies with Josh. Been buddies since, when we were younger. Mm-hmm. I'm a feed salesman as full time. I do real estate on the side.
Very cool.
A hunting nut, man.
Yeah, so you're involved in the hunting community, the ag industry, as a lot of guys are here in the Midwest. It's kind of how you become more involved in the farming, outdoor, ag lifestyle, have that type of career path. So
Yeah.
you're in the biz for deer and people that have property with deer on it.
Correct.
Especially being a seed dealer, you can get your,
Yeah.
farm ground, Never know where you can sneak in on a place to hunt.
Yeah, and actually, I don't do that a whole lot just because sometimes it's...
Sure you don't.
Yeah, sure I don't. Yeah.
Hey, a lot.
Okay. Hey, this one's being videoed, but
Only takes one, right?
yeah, right,
right.
right, the right one.
You
Yep.
found the right one.
Yep. I did find the right one.
Well, cool. So you're from the Midwest. You grow up in Iowa?
Yeah, I grew up in the Amana Colonies, which is basically if you drew a line between Iowa City and Cedar Rapids, it's 15 miles west.
Yeah, that's where the little. I bought pickled quail eggs from there. It's like a touristy little
Yeah,
area.
yep.
There. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Familiar. Very familiar. Don't
Yep.
give away your spots too close. But
Well, that's not where these deer came from.
okay. Yeah, New Hampshire.
Yeah, New Hampshire, Vermont, over that way.
New Hampshire, Iowa.
Yeah, exactly. So, well, cool. I just want to get a quick introduction. I mean, we have a story about a big buck here. Are you an active DeerCast user?
Yeah, I use it to the max. I've used it since it was the year it came out. And I think it's one of the best tools out there for a deer hunter.
Really?
I'm not saying that it's perfect for everywhere. Like my deer herds, I don't think, to me, it doesn't predict, and it does predict movement, but it does not predict like your whole herd movement. Where I hunt is not crazy pressured. So my doe herd moves pretty much regularly.
Always?
Almost every day. I mean, there are, I typically see 20 to 30 does a sit. And that's, the bad days are 15 to 20 and the good days are 30 plus.
Yeah. High deer density. So they're moving no matter what.
Yeah.
Do you think because you're such an active DeerCast user, you're a believer in it, apparently, because you're here and you have a big buck and we're talking about it. But I just want to cover this first, like the misconceptions online. I'm sure you see a lot of people like, well, I saw a deer moving and it said it was going to be bad, or it said good and I didn't see a deer moving. Like, what do you think when you see that type of thing?
To me, so I'm an elite user. I've got DeerCast Custom. I've got DeerCast Track and all that stuff. So for me, it predicts my mature buck movement. That's how I utilize it. The goods and greats.
You're not looking at it for yearlings.
Right. Quite frankly, I don't really care if a year and a half old spike's going to move or whatever. I'm in it to shoot a mature 6.5-year-old deer if I can.
Which is probably what most people are after.
Right.
Generally.
Yeah. So for me, it's the mature buck movement. Like this spot where I killed this deer, it's dicey to get into, and I only hunted 5 times with bow and a few times with the muzzleloader because it was good condition days and it was, DeerCast City, they're good or great, and I had the right wind direction. I did not risk it with this spot because it's only 21 acres where I killed this deer. So,
oh really? So you only have you screw up. It's more impactful versus someone with 100 acres or whatever it is.
And it's basically the property's a big field with a creek line that runs through it. So it's, you screw up, you're busting deer pretty easily. and in and out's tough. So it was pretty much the days I went, it was swing for the fences kind of days.
Yeah. You were expecting to kill when you went.
Yeah. Yep.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to get that out of the way. I know we talked a little bit. You were a big believer in DeerCast. I didn't know, people apply it a little bit. I think a lot of people look over the custom feature, and a lot of people look past a lot of like the DeerCast track and some of the other features that are involved in, and the Drew Outdoors library and our great, amazing podcast that's on there. I mean, if you're listening to audio only, get in DeerCast and support us there. Support the platform. It's a platform of hunters.
That's right.
Everybody just complains about social media not being for our people and being anti-Second Amendment and all that. There's a platform. You just have to go there and be involved.
Yep.
Yeah.
Don't complain about it. We talked about this with the trade shows. Don't complain about not having a show in your area, and then when a show in your area happens, you don't go and you don't support it. Don't be mad when it goes away. Go there and support hunters on our own platform.
Yep, absolutely. And you mentioned DeerCast track there. To me, that makes, I use the Elite for a lot of other reasons. The 10-day, so I can, plan out and see, because I've got 2 kids, and, I got to use my time wisely.
And 2 jobs.
And 2 jobs, yeah. So I got to keep the wife happy. So I got to
keep her happy too. Yeah.
But the Elite version, DeerCast track makes it worth it.
I think so.
I've had so many buddies that, they know I have it. So they marginally hit a deer and they say, this is about where I hit him. What's DeerCast track say? And I'm like, it's
get your own subscription.
Yes. I say, get your own subscription.
When's the last time you bought a case of beer? Oh, yesterday?
Yeah, exactly.
It's the same price as a case of
pay
$20
for it.
and it's well worth it. My bow buck, which we'll talk about, we're not talking about on this podcast, but we'll talk about on the regular WCV one. I made a marginal hit on him. So I used DeerCast track and Josh, and we talked about where I hit him, looked at all the videos, and helped me, I guess, make the right decision there with that deer. But
a lot of benefits.
Have to go over to the other podcast to hear that.
Yeah, I like that cross promo you did. Good work, Lee.
I got you.
So let's talk about this massive buck in here, because this thing is
a beast.
there's nothing that's not impressive about him. It's a dream deer for anybody, no matter where you live. Even if you've already killed one close to that size, you still want one like that. Kind of break it down, man. Where does it start? Because this thing's got everything. And whenever you want to break down the deer physically, we'll do that. But I think just give us the beginning of the journey of this deer wherever you see fits for the podcast.
Yeah. So its history for me is pretty short, really. But one of my,
which is okay.
Yeah,
That's fine.
That's sometimes better.
correct. One of my best friends is Brandon Doms, and he hunts about 4 miles as the crow flies from where I hunt. And he had pictures of this deer starting in 2019 when we thought he was a 5-year-old. And him and I are, we share trail cameras and all that kind of stuff. We're that kind of buddy, you know?
Yep.
Good buddies to have.
Yeah, good buddies to have.
Especially hunting fairly close.
Fairly close. Yep. And I drive the loop all the time with my kids and glass for deer in the summer, just like every other hunter does, and saw it a couple times. He had trail camera pictures of it in 2019. And it was around him for most of the year. And then 2020, he had pictures of it again. And the derecho hit, Iowa, knocked a bunch of trees down.
The famous Midland. That's basically a hurricane.
Tsunami,
It's just in the middle of the country.
Yeah, it's a hurricane that's on ground.
Yeah.
And it knocked a lot. The deer over by him did not live in a very big area. And it messed up his bedroom. It took a bunch of trees down in there. And we think, because normally the deer would stick around for him most of the year, maybe would leave, a little bit after shotgun season, but that year he left, was not around. And that was the year of the shed, was 2020. And there is I sold a property, and one of the properties next to it, looked pretty good. It was an alfalfa field, so I wanted to ask, and I find a lot of sheds in and around alfalfa fields. I think it's an underutilized food source for deer, really.
Oh yeah.
So I asked the farm owner, I was like, hey, you care if I go shed hunt, go look? And he's a hunter, I suppose. He basically just gun hunts with his kids. He's a huge farmer. He farms 6,000 acres, so doesn't have time for bow hunting.
Yeah. Just something, it's like an afterthought for him, kind of.
Yeah, it's
when
their off
harvest's all
season.
done.
And basically it's to eliminate some deer for crop damage.
Yeah.
That's why he does it,
Yeah.
But so he asked him if I could go shed hunt, and he was like, yeah, go for it. I don't really care. So I walked out there, and obviously I knew of this deer from my buddy Brandon. And I'm walking the edge of this field, and I look over, and it's in a pile of grass, and couldn't tell what it was. And I pulled it out, and I was like, whoa.
Let me see that thing.
You know, when I pulled it out, I find a lot of
What
sheds.
part did you see first?
So basically the beam, it was like tucked up in like this, so I could see the backside of the beam.
Like that?
No, it was tines down, but like in a grass bunch. Here, let me show you.
Give me a visual.
It was sitting like this.
Oh,
No
So like
kidding.
this was tucked in the grass, and I could
So
see
you
this.
just see. Oh, really?
I could pretty much just see this, and I pull it out, and instantly I'm like, I find quite a few sheds every year, and I was like, wow, that's a whopper. You know, that's the biggest shed I've ever found. Typical shed I've ever found.
Yeah.
It was just shy of 83 inches, missing a brow. And initially, it did not even click with me that it was that deer.
Yeah.
You know, once I was sitting there and the initial shock wore off, I suppose.
Yeah.
I was like, holy crap, we call him junk brow because when he was in 2019, when we thought he was 5, he had 3 brows on each side. So I was like, holy crap, that is junk brow. And I called Brandon right away. I'm like, dude, I just found his shed because he disappeared from him and didn't know where he went.
And that's when you guys' relationship fell apart.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, that is big deer. Big deer has the tendency to do that to friendships.
It does. I own that deer. He's mine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Brandon is not that way. I mean, and I'm not either. You don't own deer, man. You can
wild
hunt them all you
animals.
want, and they can go wherever they want. Like that deer, he traveled 4 miles. So that's kind of where the story started for me.
And that was 2019?
This
or 2020?
was 2020.
2020.
Yep.
You first knew about him 2019.
Yep.
Okay.
And I actually hunted over kind of by where Brandon is because there's a little chunk of public ground. It's only like 160 acres. And just for fun, I threw a camera
Trying
out
to
there.
get on Brandon's line there. I see what you're doing.
It wasn't
Trying
that
to get
close.
on this deer.
I'm
was about-
stirring up your guys' relationship by the end of this podcast.
It's about 3/4 of a mile from where Brandon is. And, sorry.
It's all good.
Dad doesn't drink very much anymore.
Yeah.
Just getting back into it. Huh?
Yeah, no. So I put a camera up on that public just because I was newer to the area. I moved in there in 2018. Not a lot of permission around there, and it's really open ag ground, so there's not much good hunting really.
Right.
So I put a camera on there, and I went to check it one day in July, and there was a mega giant, bigger than this deer, and not junk brow, but another giant, and he hadn't had any pictures of it yet, and we shared the pictures. He ended up having pictures of it later in the year, but I actually called that deer Cupcake. My stepdaughter was like, I always have her name my deer.
Yeah.
And she was like, let's call him Cupcake. I'm like,
Okay,
"All right,
okay.
sounds good.
It's kind of awesome, actually.
Yeah, he was like I would have said he was like 215.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I hit a genetic pocket moving in there, I think. But anyways, so I hunted there a little bit. Never saw him. Never saw Cupcake. 2020
name.
rolls around. I find the shed. Yeah, and so then I asked the farmer. It took me forever to catch him because I was like, I gotta ask to hunt here. You know, this deer's huge.
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
So I finally catch him like, I don't know what it is, end of July. And I'm like, hey, I know you don't bow hunt at all. You care if I bow hunt? He's like, no, that's fine. Go ahead. You know, shoot some does if you can. But the county that I live in, the doe tags are really limited.
There's a lot of counties like that in Iowa.
Yeah, there
the
is.
county I live in, there's only 200.
Yeah, I don't know what there is in the county I live in, but it's slim. It's one of those you have to buy it the first day.
Oh yeah,
you gotta
we
be up
usually
at
have to get
midnight.
on at
Yeah.
midnight. Yep.
Yep. So I was like, well, I don't really have any doe tags, but he's like, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead and hunt. And I said, cool. And he owns a lot of ground, but I didn't want to push it. I was like, I'll just hunt this 21 acres.
Yeah.
It's small. He gun hunts there, but I said I won't hunt during early muzzleloader, and I won't hunt after shotgun season because then you're
Yeah.
into late muzzleloader.
Be respectful and stuff. Yeah.
Yep. Put some cameras up all summer long, and it's like not a buck all summer. And I'm like, man, I just can't believe this. It butts up to a pretty low pressured area. It's a pretty good funnel, and just no bucks all summer long. And I'm like, I don't get it. But then like not too long after Velvet Shed, the Velvet Scramble.
Everybody's splitting.
Yeah.
Yep. My first camera check, it was like, I don't know, the 10th or 12th of October or something that I pulled the cameras after the end of September after season. And it was like, holy smokes, here came the bucks. I had a bunch of different bucks on camera. None of him, 2 or 3 other really good deer.
I think it's important to note what you went in after you got the property. What was your, standard? You know what I mean? Because like when you did that first camera pull, you didn't really care. You know what I mean? You were
Like
all
first
in.
130.
Well,
Right.
I just think that your entire season was dedicated.
Oh, absolutely.
To him,
To Junk
you know
Brow
what I mean?
because I found the shed there. It was
Right.
like,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah,
Yeah.
And you're only getting pictures of does, so it's like,
Right.
okay,
Yeah.
where'd he go now?
yeah. And, that's a conversation I had with Josh.
It's like things are obviously going to change.
Yeah.
If you look at
Yeah.
that pattern, you
Yep.
found the shed there. Like,
he's coming at some point.
Yeah.
My mindset.
Right.
And I had conversations with Josh and my dad. And my dad is like, wait for him, That's a once in a lifetime deer. Don't shoot anything but him.
Yeah.
Even if you eat tag soup, that's your buck this year. And I talked with Josh, and Josh was like, he's not coming. There's no way.
Well, and that conversation took place after these original card pulls. We started getting into September, and what he was alluding to was like there was multiple mature bucks. You're talking 21 acres, right? 4, 5 in the 4 to 6 range.
Yeah, I would say, well, there were 3 bucks harvested on it. I mean, he was one of them. So 2 mature bucks, another really old one, and some 3 and 4 year olds. So there was a lot of deer once the bucks started showing up.
Right.
And I think the other thing you need to note is where you found the shed is the best thermal cover right next to it anyway on that property that you
Yep.
couldn't hunt the, what's the lack of a better term?
The low pressured area.
Yeah, like
basically.
nobody hunts the farm basically.
Yep. Nobody hunts the farm. They drive ATVs on it and that kind of stuff. But
Right.
And so what our conversation was, he's like, I'm going to hold out for him. And I was like, the deer you got on camera, you better not pass them though. You know what I mean? Because they're giants. And the way that he found the shed, I was like, this deer's going to move in late season, man. If he's not here yet, you know what I mean? You're talking, if he's here, it might be a rut type of thing.
yeah.
And so that's when you had set like the hard deadline per se.
yeah, so that leads into what I was going to say next is, after talking to Josh and talking to my dad, I said, if he's not here by November 10th, I'm going to shoot another deer. I'm not shooting any deer but him at that point.
Right.
That was my hard deadline where it was like, okay, that's where
November 10th.
the flip will switch.
Still
The cutoff
very, what's the term? I would say you're a little, I get it. I get the call.
Yep.
But you're being fairly flexible there with the November 10th. Like,
Yeah.
I would have been like November 25th.
Well, my thought process was behind it is the highest doe density is where I'm at. And if he's coming in, I would have figured it would have been that October 25th range, when they're kind of getting it on their mind right after the October lull, swell, that kind of thing. I figured that would be the point where he's coming to look for does. So he's
And
going
they're checking does.
Yeah, he's going to come to the,
I
the high doe density.
I see
area.
why you made that
Yeah.
decision. Yeah.
Well, and the other part of that we talked about was that go back to the 2019 derecho. Brandon talked about how his bedroom, there was this good thermal cover winter, type of range stuff. The deer didn't disappear in 2020 until the late season. And I think that's very important to note. Like, Brandon had pictures of them all the way through the rut. So I'm like, that 4-mile trek, I don't think that's when he's making it.
Yeah, but
Like,
my hopes were up,
I mean, anytime you know about a deer like
Yeah.
this, it's
Yep.
motivating no matter what. Even if he's 10 miles away, you're like, there's a chance.
Yeah, and that was honestly,
Hey, you never know.
You never know.
there was plenty of conversations that were borderline heated. You know what I mean? 'Cause
Yeah.
like, you're asking me for my advice. I think he's going to show up late season. I mean, like, just with Brandon's information, that really helped make me think, like, okay, you found him next to the thermal cover.
Yeah.
You have 2 Boone and Crockett bucks on camera consistently.
Hey, shout out to Brandon.
Yeah.
Brandon, you really
Brandon's a guy.
you could not find a more humble, great person.
Get
Absolutely.
Brandon in here. We got a cold
Yeah.
beer for him. That's
He
what we
is.
need for Brandon.
Oh, he'd come over. He grew up like 5 miles from here.
No kidding?
Yep. I can't remember the name of the town.
We'll
but
talk after the podcast.
Yeah.
I wonder if I know him.
We'll call him
You
up.
might. He's upper 30s, I think,
Maybe.
age-wise.
It's possible.
Yeah, maybe.
I didn't grow up in this area, like exactly where we're at, but just know, there's a chance.
Yeah.
You can know him.
But that's one of the conversations that Josh and I had a lot. He was like, dude, you have 2 booners on camera. Like, you would be stupid to pass them if they walk by.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Thanks, Josh.
It was
Yeah.
easy for me to say. I didn't have any.
Well,
Yeah.
it's good. It's great advice.
Yep.
That
But
is good advice.
It is,
Yeah.
but it was like, I was like, Josh, he is I never had any pictures of him. I saw him on the hoof a couple times, and I'm like, he's a whopper, he's
Yeah.
a once in a lifetime deer. I gotta wait, and he was like, dude, that 10 pointer, which is my buck I ended up shooting with the bow. He was like, that's a 170 inch deer. another buck that I had that was called the Trashy 8 that the neighbor ended up killing. He was 173.
Oof.
And it was just like, man, and they were pretty regular on camera, never daylight, but real close. And well, he actually, my bow buck daylighted a couple times, but it was just like, I got to wait. I have to, man. Have to.
Yeah. I don't blame you.
So that's when I set that November 10th deadline. And November 10th came, I hunted on November 10th.
Okay. So the November 10th deadline comes. You wake up November 11th.
Just wait.
Okay. Sorry. I'm getting ahead. I'm getting excited.
My bow buck, I killed November 10th.
I was just about to ask, like, did any of these other bucks walk by and you passed them?
Oh, here we go. I can't remember. There we go. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah. So
Sorry, Eric.
No, you're fine.
yeah, it was, and we'll talk more about it on the other podcast, but November 10th, I shot my bow buck because I never saw the 2 shooters that I had that I was going to shoot in person.
Yeah.
And then he walked by, and actually both of them walked by that day. I was just a little bit behind on the other one.
Okay.
I remember, that was that really foggy day. You called me like, you hunting? I'm like, nope, I'm editing. What are you doing? You're like, I got about an hour, 2 hours, 2 hours to go hunt. And I was like, I'm hopping in because DeerCast had actually changed that. You know how it hourly updates?
Yep.
It started off as, I don't remember what is okay in the middle. It started off as an okay day, and like in the matter of the next hour, it switched to great. And I was like, I gotta go get in the tree. It's November 10th, it could happen any day.
It's my last day.
It's my deadline.
It's my deadline day. Today's the day.
It'd be funny if DeerCast did an update where you could plug in notes like deadline day, and that's what it popped up as.
Yeah.
His alarm goes off. It's deadline day.
Yeah. Make it or break it.
So I ended up shooting him, and that was a whole story. We'll talk about that on the next one.
Yeah. It's not 130. You're
Yeah.
like, I ended up shooting him instead.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. It's a stud.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So after that, I tagged out, and I'm just sitting around. I kept my cameras out there because I told the landowner, I said, I'll keep my cameras out. They're just doe killers, or if
Yeah. I'll let you know.
yeah, I
kidding.
would, because we'll get into
know.
we'll get
I
into that here real
that's
quick.
probably one of the coolest parts of this story.
Okay.
So, anyways, I keep my cameras out, and I'm like, it was all the way through shotgun season. I had one cell cam out, and a couple stagnant cameras, or non-cell. I guess I call them stagnant
Yeah,
cameras. I don't know
no,
why. But so the day, it would be the first day of late muzzleloader, which was December 20th this year, I think.
Yep, around there. Sounds right.
I go pull my cameras, except for the one cell camera. Most of the deer come out and where I get most of the pictures. I go pull the camera and get back home, stick the card in, and that morning, December 20th, at like 20 minutes before daylight, he's on the camera. John Prowse on the camera, and I'm like, oh, here we go. But I can't hunt there late muzzleloader.
Ooh.
And I'm like, oh no. So I call Brandon, because we kept in contact with each other and all that.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I got a picture of him. Like, he showed up this morning, and he goes, are you bleeping kidding me? I'm like, no, why? He goes, I'm headed to hunt him right now. And I'm like, sorry, dude.
Oh,
sorry,
crap.
man. So a couple days go by. Actually, I go right back out, and I put a cell cam on that tree because it's a pretty good trail, and it's on the side of the creek that I found his shed on. And I get a couple pictures of him, and it's like, man, I can't hunt there. I call Josh, and I'm like, Josh, what do I do? Like, I don't have permission to hunt here. Like, should I go ask him if he cares if I hunt on the days he doesn't hunt or whatnot? Or
Yeah.
like, should I tell him about the deer?
Hey, it doesn't hurt to ask.
Yeah. And that was the moral dilemma, was, do I tell him about the deer? Because it's like, is it worth losing my permission on this farm that I know is going to be good every year for a deer like that, just to ask if I can go hunt there?
Yeah. I see what you're saying.
Or do I tell him about it and be honest? And, because he might tell me no anyways, but well, then he knows about the deer.
You put some thought into it, though.
Yeah, see,
Yeah,
the moral dilemma, I like this because it's I've experienced similar moral dilemmas, and a lot of it is like, you were the guy that put in the work, that did everything and found the deer and knows about the deer, and somebody else that might hunts not even a third of the time you hunt, puts not even a third of the effort in that you put into it, doesn't care regardless,
but owns the ground.
but owns the ground or has like the access to it, that maybe granted you the access to it.
Right.
And then it's like, is that going to change how they act for the minimal time they're going to put in when you have your life is dedicated to this? and you care and you're going to honor the animal and do everything possible to make sure it's ethical and clean and respectful. And, you know, you shoot this deer, you know what this deer is. You're going to respect and put on a show with this deer more than anybody else would.
Absolutely.
Whereas some guys will just chuck it in the pile in the shed and there it is.
Oh, and that was exactly where we kind of started talking about. I'm like, listen, man, you have this full on story and you already shot a Boone and Crockett animal on this permission farm. I mean, and
Right.
like, keep in perspective, in Iowa, like, leasing is getting harder and harder to
yeah.
come
Getting
by.
Even getting a lease, let
It's
alone permission.
expensive, you know. So like, this guy knows what he has. I mean, yeah, he might be a farmer, but he's not,
Not dumb.
unaware of
Right,
like
right.
what kind of deer he had shot. And I was like, here's what I'd say, man. I would be completely upfront with him, and if he kills the deer, you're the nicest guy in the world. But at the end of the day, you don't have a Boone and Crockett without this guy. You don't have the shed that you do. He also might tell you, yeah, go ahead and do it. And then you can tell the full story the way that you want to tell it.
Without being weird about it.
Because like it kind of would have been a little manipulative. And like when we had our conversation, I'm like, you already kind of feel guilty about telling him, hey, can I just happen to hunt? You know, it's like, yeah,
Hey,
I just
look.
happened to kill a 200-inch plus
Right.
deer. And,
Yeah.
yeah.
Didn't know anything about him.
Yeah.
and so just like long term, I was like, you know, whatever your gut tells you to do, that's what you should do. Whatever you consider right. And, you know, we can already.
Great advice.
And initially our conversation was, don't even risk it. You know, this property is going to be good for
Forever.
a lot of years.
Right.
You know, don't risk going in there. You know, you already shot a booner. Don't risk going in there and losing permission on the farm. It's
Yeah.
not worth it.
Right.
I'm sure you know, how is it? So break down the conversation
Okay.
if you want to. You don't
Yeah,
have
no,
to.
I will absolutely.
So what'd you do? That's what we're asking here.
Break it down.
Yeah.
How'd it go?
How do I do this?
Yeah. So
What a fun conversation, though, because I'm sure a lot of people listening have had something similar on permission ground. But, you know, there's a lot of guys that love to hunt, and that's why they got permissions, because the landowner doesn't really give that much of a shit about it.
Right.
Like he might, like you're saying, very casually,
Yep.
doesn't care about shooting a 5-year-old deer that he's going to put all this effort into. There's probably a lot of people more people than I bet we think have been in your shoes. Maybe not in this caliber of deer,
Right.
but a 150, a
Yep.
160, if 140 in certain areas.
Way more than we think, I bet.
I bet. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say.
So I go to his house. He's really hard to catch because, like I said, he farms 6,000 acres, so he's all over the place all the time. I go to his house and I'm like, okay, I got to talk to you about something. I text him and I'm like, hey, are you around? I got to talk to you about something. He goes, yeah, that's fine. I'm at the house, you know, stop on over. And I knock on the door. I sit on the front stoop, wait for him to come out. He steps out. He goes, what's going on, Lee? And I said, I got to be honest with you. There's this deer that between me and one of my buddies, we've known about for a couple years. I hunted in his general area on the public ground, never saw him. And he just showed up on the 21 acres you let me hunt. And I understand that our agreement was I get bow hunt, you guys gun hunt. And I said, I want to ask if you would care if I try to kill him, because it's a once in a lifetime deer. Between me and my buddy, we know about him. And he's like, man, because he's got two boys. One's like 11 and one's like 15.
Yeah.
Right.
And they go sit in the blind and, you know,
Yeah.
they just shoot whatever comes out. But
Sure.
he's like, I just don't know how to make that work, you know, because I don't know when we're going to go, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, okay, well, I have a proposition. How about proposition?
We know what you mean.
Yeah.
English is not my specialty.
Yeah. Got a proposition for you.
yeah.
Just say it fast. No
Yeah.
one knows really what you said.
Exactly.
That's what I do.
I said, how about, because shooting light's like, you know, 5:15 to 5:30 during
Right,
those
somewhere in
season
there.
typically. I'm like, how about I text you at 3 o'clock every day, and if by then you'll know if you're going, and if you tell me I can go, I'll sneak in there and go. Well, he's a big farmer. He had to do his year-end stuff, so the first 6 days of the season I got to hunt, basically, because this was not the first day of the season. It was like the 25th, like right around Christmas that I asked him. And
Not that many days left.
no, not really. And he said, yeah, that's fine.
How
You
was
know?
his reaction when you're like, this big deer's here? Like, was he like, oh,
He was like, oh, cool. You know, you knew about him? And I'm like, yeah, you know, he actually lived like 4 miles from here.
Did you show him pictures?
Yep. Showed him pictures. And he actually said, oh, one of my other buddies had a picture of him.
oh yeah, I knew about it.
yeah. A buddy that's about halfway between us. He had pictures like end of the rut.
Gotcha.
He's like, so I've seen the deer, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I just don't know how to make it work. And that's when I brought up the proposition.
Yeah.
And he goes, yeah, that's fine. He said, I'll know by 3 o'clock if I'm going to go or not. So that day I said, okay,
You probably jumped off that porch, didn't
I
you?
was, in my head, I was like, yes.
Yeah. I love you.
But so the next day I text him and it's 3 o'clock and I said, hey, are you going? He said, nope. And hunted. Yeah. And that's what it was, because it was a mad scramble.
You better have all your hunting stuff on before you text him.
I did every single day.
Every day, just in case.
I was ready. And actually,
Just walking around the house in it.
the place is only like 5 miles from my house.
Beautiful.
And I would be driving that direction when I texted him, because if I got the yes, it was like, psh, I'm getting in there, because it's hard to get in without busting deer, and late season they're going to be out,
Especially 3 o'clock.
Yeah,
It's high deer density.
high deer density.
Right.
Open.
Yeah, it's,
Fairly
I mean,
open.
there's a creek line, but it's basically a 18-acre field with a creek line that goes through it.
It's 21 acres.
21 acres
Good on
total,
you,
man.
man. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yeah.
So take a step back. Why do you think that this deer moved in? You know, like we've kind of briefly touched on it, but I think that's
Yeah.
you know,
So I think he moved in, like you said, over where Brandon is. His thermal cover, his bedroom got messed up. You know.
Shout out to Brandon, man.
Yeah. Shout out to Brandon.
What a nice guy.
Dude, Storm messed up his thermal cover.
Yep.
We'll help you fix that, Brandon. We'll get you somebody out there to clean that up.
So I think he moved in for the thermal cover. I mean, it's the only, where I live, it's, you know, it's the only big timber. This guy and his brother own the only big timber around for like a 10-mile square. I mean, there's patches here and there, but I mean, this one, like, there's 100 and some acres, 180, 200 acres of timber. His brother owns 200 or 300 acres of timber across the highway. And there's no pressure there because they don't hunt. And during shotgun season, a couple of my buddies in the area shotgun hunt there. I don't. But they said when you push a deer, it runs that way.
Yeah. They just know it's safe.
Yep, they know it's safe there. He said even if you push the deer in the opposite direction, they're going to loop around.
They're going to get there. They're going to get there either way.
Well, they know, man. I mean, you know when
yeah.
people are messing around your house or not, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And
You live in a bad neighborhood, you know about it.
yeah, exactly.
You know?
Someone's in your house. Yeah, you know about it.
Yeah.
So just the lack of pressure and thermal cover, I think, is why he moved there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yep. So the first night, by the time he texted me back, it was like 3:35, and it's like a rainy, misty night. It was a great night on DeerCast, and I had a marginal wind, so I sat back quite a ways and more or less observed. And I sneak over, and there's kind of like a knob that comes down that hides part of the field, and I get on the creek line and sneak up, and like as I come around and peek around the knob, there's like 30 deer in the field, and they pick their heads up, stare at me, and all run back in, and I'm like, oh,
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
That's where you sit down right there and
Yeah,
just wait
so I
because
did.
they'll come back out.
I
Or
sat
hurry up and
down.
just get to where you want to go now.
Yeah.
They're out of
and
the
that's
field.
really about where I was going to sit, because I wanted just to be able to see back in that back corner that is hidden. So I sit down and just wait, and they start coming back out, and there is another buck, and the old man 10 is what I called him. He's like a low 50s 10-pointer. He's the one that I think he's like 8.5. Just a mule of a deer, super wide, not a giant, but a nice deer, you know, really mature. And he walks out like 10 minutes before shooting light, and I had told him I will only shoot this deer. And he stepped out, and I was like,
Yeah, that's where you're grabbing the collar.
Moral dilemma. Talk about moral dilemma part 2.
Right.
Hey, bud, remember I told you about that buck?
Remember that first proposition? I got another one
I got
for you.
another one for him. But he stepped out, and I just let him go. And I saw quite a few deer that night,
Hey,
more than normal.
One of his kids could have shot that deer and would have been more than thrilled.
Absolutely. And that's what I told him. I said, I've got my cameras out. If that deer comes out, I will tell you, because, you know, it's not a deer knowing what's in the area that I'm probably going to shoot unless it gets later in the season, you know, to manage the herd. Anyways, so he comes out, bunch of deer, and I could sneak out pretty easily. And that's how that hunt went. And then the next 5 nights, so I killed him on the 6th night of hunting, and every night he said, I'm not going. And like 2 nights before I killed Junk Brow, he said, listen, it's up until January 1st, I won't be able to go because I'm doing my year-end stuff. So he said, pretty much just go ahead and go. But I would still text him every day after 3 just because to keep the relationship.
Yeah.
You know?
Hey, just checking, bud. Yeah, type of stuff. Good on you, man. That's cool.
So the way the property sets up, it's the 18 acres, and the big portion of the field is like 15 acres, and then the creek splits it, and there's like a 3-acre sliver. It's only 20 yards wide, but it's the whole property long. And I had pictures of junk brow like almost every night on that north side, which is the skinny side.
It's on the other side of the creek then?
Yep, it's on the property, but it's on the north side of the creek.
Right.
And I never hunted there because
Can't
I
get to
figured,
it.
You know, my range, you know, with a muzzleloader, I've got a lot more range to shoot in the big side versus I'm limiting myself to a 20-yard path. And on New Year's Eve, we had made plans with Josh and Drake Lamb to, you know, hang out and that kind of stuff. Hang out.
Have a good time. Yeah.
Have a good time, you know.
Drink some sparkling waters.
Yep.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pop the sparkling grape juice at midnight.
Right.
type
Yeah.
of
The
stuff.
Welch's.
Yep.
Yeah. Of course. Been there. I've done that. It's good. A little
And-
sweet, but it's good.
You know, we had made plans because he was going to hunt, I was going to hunt, and Drake was going to hunt that night. And made plans to go hunting, and then we'll do that stuff afterwards. And DeerCast was great. So that's mainly why we all were like, we're hunting tonight. And there was a big snowstorm coming in. A little bit
adding
of
up.
snow on the ground already. And it was like, man, these conditions are so good. And DeerCast said, great. So,
You got to go.
yeah. And it was like,
You going?
you know, he
Yes,
told
sir.
me that pretty much January 1st, he was going to start hunting, you know? So I was like, I got to swing for the fences. All my pictures have been on the north side of the creek. I got to swing for the fences. It was a northeast wind, which is pretty good. Kind of quartering at the deer side-ish towards their back half. So not really ideal or conducive for big buck movement. You know, you wouldn't think they'd come with the wind at their quartering hind. But I'm like, I got to swing for the fences. The conditions are too good. So I worked down the edge to like 180 yards from where the camera is that I have pictures of him. And I have pictures of him pretty well every night. And I have a camera like 300 yards west of where he normally comes out. And it's on a creek crossing. And the nights, let's see, the mornings I would have him coming back to bed. He would come out that night. And it was like every second day or something like that. Every other day, basically. And that morning I had a picture of him going back to bed. And I was just like, if it's going to
happening.
happen, it's going to happen, you know?
Yeah.
So I sneak in there and I've got my muzzleloader on like a kind of like a bog pod, but not like a shooting rest that holds the gun. And I just sit on the ground, tucking some grass under a down tree, and I'm probably 180 yards from where they walk out, 185, something like that. And the deer start piling out on that small side. And so some does come out and they all work my way. And I'm like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah.
'Cause it's only, I mean, it's where I'm sitting, it's the pinch of it. So it's only 15 yards wide.
So they're going to walk right in front of you.
Yeah, they're going to walk right next to me. And I'm just like, this is not going to be good. You know, I'm going to get busted. So about the last 45 minutes is when the deer really started to pour out, just like a typical muzzleloader hunt, you know. And I'm sitting there and I get my gun to the shoulder, my scope, I set it about where I think he's going to walk out.
Just so you didn't have to move.
Just
and
so I
shit.
didn't have to move, you know. And just sat with my face pretty much on the gun the whole time because I was like, if I move, I'm busted.
Yeah.
Because I had does at 15 yards.
Right.
Jeez, yeah.
And
It's
then
like
I
cool.
Sitting on the ground.
It's
Yeah, and I was
cool,
sitting
but
on the
like
ground.
move along, ladies.
Yeah.
Like keep going. And at one point,
And you move along.
they moved past me, got downwind, busted,
Ooh.
and only ran like to 100 yards and stopped. Because they're, like I said, they're not really pressured, especially hunting pressure. There's not a lot of pressure there. But so they knew
They
something
weren't
was wrong.
spooked. They weren't spooked too bad.
Yeah, they just were like, I don't really know what that was.
I'm going over here.
Yeah, I'm going to go stand over here. So I'm sitting there and they start to work back again and it's getting a lot closer to dark. And now we're like 10 minutes till the end of shooting light. And I'm like, come on, dude. Like the conditions are too good. And every night that I would have pictures of him, it would be like anywhere from 5 to 10 minutes after shooting light.
So you know it's like I'm in the window right now. It's game time.
And my thought is if he comes out, it's going to be the last 2 to 3 minutes of shooting light.
Right.
And it's going to be...
That last half hour or two, it gets dark so fast.
Yes. And it's going to be a get your face on the gun and get to him, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there and actually, I don't know if this is the wisest thing, but I took my safety off because I didn't want there to be a doe there and have to click. The safety and have her be 5 feet from me or, you know, which obviously probably would not happen because they'd bust way before that.
Hey,
but
you're
never
ready,
know.
dude. You're tentative.
I was I was on pins and needles because, like I said, the conditions were just too good for him not to come out.
Yeah.
And technically, it's the last night that you can hunt if he's going to hunt after the first. So you're
it
like,
was like it's game time.
right.
Yeah.
So I've got my face down and all that stuff, and I'm like, man, it's getting kind of dark, and the does were far enough away. I reached down in my pocket. Shooting light was 5:21, and I look down at my phone and it's 5:19, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you know. And I stick my phone back in my pocket, and I look up, and he's standing at the edge of the field, and I'm like,
Uh-oh.
so.
And how far is that again?
He was about 180 yards.
Okay.
Yep. So from the second I saw him till the second the trigger pulled was about 15 seconds. Because I was
damn.
like, I don't want to have to shoot after. I'm not going to shoot after shooting light. You know.
No,
Right.
yeah, it just causes problems,
Yeah.
especially on a deer like that.
Exactly. So I get down, I get my face on it, and he was about from where I had set my gun to where I thought he was going to walk out. He was about 3 or 4 yards north of there.
So you're just on it.
So
Like,
it was like, you know, because every picture he came out the same place.
Yeah.
And actually, he came out from where my camera cannot catch him. So I thought maybe every night I had pictures of him, but he was just coming out on a different trail.
right.
Right.
What trail? It only tells the story of what's on that tree.
Exactly. Yep. So he's quartering to me decently hard. So I put it right on the front side of his shoulder and pull the trigger. And the deer scattered that were closer, and they scattered towards him, but did not clear the field. And I'm like, and I, you know, that being that dark, it was like, I don't know if
What
I hit him or
happened,
not.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
know if I hit him. So
Well, I mean, not only being dark, but you got a puff of smoke. It's 180 yards
Yeah.
away. You don't know what the hell happened at that
And
point.
it's 10 yards and he's probably back in the woods.
yeah, he ended up being about 25 yards off the field or where he came out of.
When he died.
No, by the time I got the gun
I see,
on him
I
and pulled the trigger.
Okay.
So I literally picked my gun up, left my butt pad that I was sitting on, picked the gun up, and turned and left. I didn't, because the does were still out there, and I'm like, if he's alive and I didn't hit
The
him,
other
well,
deer
if I-
might keep him calm.
right. If I gut shot him or something, I just didn't know. I don't want him to push all those. I don't want to push all those deer and have him take him
Yeah.
Right.
back into the neighbors.
Yeah.
Because I had a run in with those neighbors with my bow buck, which again we'll talk about. We'll talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Episodes
just-
to be week or two apart. Maybe, I mean, they could launch the same week, but
Yeah.
just look at the feed. You'll figure it
yeah,
out.
just look for my name.
We're in
Hey,
the
pay attention.
We're in the podcast cloud currently.
Yep. So I just picked my stuff up and I went back to the truck, drove home, and I got home, and Jackie's my wife's name. She looked at me and she goes, "What is wrong?
Shout out to Jackie.
Seriously.
You
Yeah.
can't kill big deer if your wife sucks."
Hey, I've been saying it.
Yep, absolutely.
How's your
And-
wife doing, Josh?
Never going to have one.
Cool. All right. We'll come back to that. Turn it into the WCB episode.
But she goes, "What's wrong?" And I said, "I shot at him." And she goes, "What do you mean at?"
Yeah.
Because she,
Keyword here.
Yeah, she's like,
She's educated enough.
she's like all of our wives.
Yeah.
Right.
They gotta like it a little bit, otherwise they wouldn't be with us. 'Cause
Yeah,
we're
that's
nuts
right.
about it.
Can't kill big bucks if your wife sucks.
Yep.
And they know when something's wrong, too.
Yeah.
Hey,
And
greatest quote of all time of me. And I
You might as well get a tattoo of that.
I'm gonna actually.
you probably should.
Hey, if I get divorced, you know why?
No, we need bumper stickers of that.
We'll get them made.
But she goes, "You are white as a ghost." And I just was the whole drive home. I called Josh on my way.
Did you
home.
call Brandon?
I did. Yeah, he was
Okay.
actually
Okay. So you got to
Hey,
call
Yeah,
Brandon.
the
Shout out
first
to
call,
Brandon.
Yeah.
my first call was my dad.
Yep.
Because he's who started me in hunting. Second call was my wife. Third call was Josh. Fourth call was Brandon.
Very fair lineup.
Yep. And so I get home and she's like, "What do you mean you shot at him?" And I said, "Don't know if I hit him." She goes, "All this whole season and you don't know if you hit him?" I'm like, "No idea."
We're hopeful,
There
lady.
was smoke and there was too many deer. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know if
yeah.
I hit him. So I grab a flashlight and all that jazz, and I give it about 45 minutes, and I'm like, I'll go look for blood. If I hit him good, he's dead.
Yeah.
If not, I'll know. I'll be able to see some guts, and the snowstorm was coming in, so I was like, I gotta go.
Yeah, you gotta look.
I gotta
Yeah.
look. Go back at the shot. It looked like you took a solo cup full of blood and threw it, and I'm like, oh, I hit him. Thank goodness I hit him.
Yeah.
And after that, I can't find a speck of blood, and I'm like,
Muzzleloaders are like that sometimes.
yeah. And actually, I was shooting a smokeless, which I know sometimes you guys frown on, but
Well, I don't frown on that.
No, not at all.
Have we ever frowned on that?
well, I thought I heard it on your other podcast that some people don't like the whole smokeless world. But the reason,
No.
so I actually borrowed it from a buddy, and the reason I shot a smokeless is because with the interaction I had with the neighbors, I didn't want him getting to the neighbors.
That's very
Right.
fair. Yeah.
And it's, to me, you can shoot 500 yards with the smokeless muzzleloader if you
Right.
want. But to me, that's not why I used it. I used it for the kill power behind it.
Yeah.
So normally they bleed pretty decently normally, but I can't see a speck of blood anywhere after that initial hit. And I'm like, oh no, why? I mean, why? There was good blood right at the shot. And I followed a lot of the tracks back to where he came out, because that's where I kind of figured he would run in. That's where my bow buck ran in, no blood. And I'm like, man, I don't get this. So I go back to the initial spot and I'm looking, and so straight east would be where I thought he was going to run. And he ended up going south and west, just to the creek line.
Yeah.
And I look southwest and I can see one little thing that looks like a speck of blood, and I get over there and it's like hands and knees. I'm in
In snow.
In snow.
And snow. I would say they.
Still hard to see the blood. And what it looked like is like you took a paintbrush and you dipped it in blood and you just like flicked the paintbrush. The specks were super, super small.
Small mist.
Yeah, basically it was like a mist almost.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he ended up going like, I don't know, 35 or 40 yards, and he was dead. And it was like he was in some thick grass, and I came around the corner and I saw his feet, and then I turned the corner and so with the pictures, there were some pictures that he looked like a 220, and there were some pictures that he looked like a 170. So I thought he was going to be like in the 90 range.
When they get big like that, dude, they're hard to judge.
Yes.
You can't tell.
Yeah.
180 or 200.
Yeah.
Like 20 inches, but 180 is massive.
Correct.
Right.
Yep. So I didn't truly know what he was. And when I found him, first call was Jackie to let her know that I found him. And second call was my dad. Third call was Brandon. Fourth call was Josh. So I flipped it up a little bit once I found him.
Right. Shout out to Brandon.
Yeah.
Shout out to Brandon.
Yeah.
Josh was last though.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Basically, I was like,
I
hey,
didn't deserve to be on the list anyway. I was kind of a jerk about this deer.
Yeah, you were mean about it.
He was the hater the whole time.
Yeah. You aren't gonna see him. Yeah.
You won't shoot that thing.
Hey, but you were kind of right though. He's gonna be there late season.
Yep.
I just want to see him kill a booner with his bow.
Hey,
That's why he pushed.
check.
Once I got done with my phone calls, this is one of those moments, one of the only moments in the deer woods, I cried like a baby. I'm not going to lie.
Take it all in.
I finished those phone calls. I shut it off. I didn't take any pictures because I had a couple people that I had told on the way home that were like, send me pictures when you find him.
Yeah.
I sat there for 15 minutes.
And the people you tell are texting you, hey, did you find him yet? Did you find
Send
any
me a
blood?
picture,
Like, do
yeah.
all this.
And I sat there right next to him for 15 minutes and cried.
I would have too, man.
Absolutely. You know, it's
Beautiful.
it's a once in a lifetime deer, you know.
So that's a moment that you almost have to slow down. It sounds like you were conscious enough in the moment to slow yourself down and take that in, because I feel like a lot of times you're just like, all right, let's get this thing out of here. And you did the right thing. It's cool to hear.
Yep.
Because I think I would have done the same thing. I probably would have went and got a couple beers and sat down next to him and like paid my respects and
Had a moment.
yeah. Well, I mean, you had your moment, you know, but I for sure would have had a moment. Like you have to with a deer like that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's different if you don't know about it and you kill it. You still have your moment, but the moment's not as heavy. I mean, maybe it is, but you knowing about this deer and like thinking about it, and
Having the history with him.
having the history and the unique situations and moral dilemmas, and you're just calculated, man. It's cool to see it. I'm glad. I like seeing deer like this fall to people like you that really appreciate them, because there's no bigger bummer than seeing a dude who doesn't give a shit about the deer or the quality of the deer or the specimen. Like, think about what needs to be thrown into a whitetail deer to create that.
Oh, it's,
Right.
You know,
A lot of like impossible variables.
it's once in, I said once in a lifetime, but a deer like this is once in many lifetimes.
It is.
You know, I've said, you know, I hunt a really good area over there. There's a genetic pocket there, I think, and it just produces big deer. And I said, not a good chance, but there's a chance I kill a higher scoring deer at some point in my life. I have
Possible for
I
how
have
young you are.
a lot of years yet. You know, I'm 27, be 28 in September. I mean, I've got
What day in September?
23rd.
I'm the 6th.
I have, you know, hopefully 45 years of hunting left, you know,
Yeah. I mean,
but I don't think I will ever kill a prettier deer that has it all.
the deer's very appealing to the eye. There's a lot of deer that make 200 that aren't as like attractive, but this he's big, he's massive, he has tines, he's got the crazy brows. I mean,
He's got everything.
Can you break down, well, before you break him down physically, what he is like. Okay, so you have your moment out there, then you get him out. Like, what are people's reactions seeing this deer in person for the first time?
So when I went and got him out, I asked it would be my wife's uncle and one of our neighbors have 2 younger boys that, you know, my neighbor hunts a little bit, but not a lot. And, you know, I'm one of those that hunters are a dying breed, you know?
Yeah.
Get him out there when you can.
Get them out there when you can. They don't have a lot of experience with it. So I asked them if they wanted to come with to get it. You know, I already knew it was there. So we got, you know, one's 6 and one is 8. And
Very cool.
They got to come with and, you know, watch me gut it. First time watching that. And, you know, got to take pictures with it. And those are probably some of my favorite pictures of the deer is those 2, especially because he looks like an elk.
Right.
Smaller the body. Let's get some small bodies in here. You guys got any kids?
But seeing those 2 boys grinning behind that deer when they've never really been around it and thinking it's the coolest thing in the world, that was probably one of the cooler parts of it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But, so I called my dad. You know, my he lives like an hour and a half from where I do. And my dad's been there for every deer I've ever killed, basically. Well, not basically. He's been there for every deer I've ever killed. And he said, I'm out at dinner right now, but I'm on my way and there's a ice and snowstorm coming. And I'm like, just come tomorrow. He said, He said, this isn't one I just come tomorrow.
Yeah, and I'm on my way.
He contemplated leaving his dinner to come help me find it. And I was like, I got plans.
Get the doggy bag, Dad. Let's go. Wrap it up.
Take that shit to go.
So I've got 2 sisters. One of my sisters lives a little bit farther away, but the one lives right close to my dad. And they hopped in the truck and came up. And
Very cool.
My dad's killed some big deer. He's got a couple in the 180s and, you know, he's been hunting since the early 90s.
Yeah, he knows.
He knows. Yeah. He was like, woof.
No shit.
Yeah. He was like, that is a big deer. And we taped it that night. He was stiff and all that kind of stuff. And I taped him with like a seamstress tape.
Yeah.
You know, a little bit thicker.
Yeah, just a soft.
Kind of hard to get good measurements, but not
good enough for a green score.
Yeah. And I actually green scored him at like 209 and 7/8. And, you know, I scored, my dad wrote, and my dad totaled it up. And we were sitting in the kitchen and he goes, like his eyes got really big. And I'm like, what? He goes, I gotta re-add those. You know, I thought, I thought he was, even after I killed him, you know, I told him it was like he's like a 190. That's what I told him.
Yeah.
Cause really the only thing that I would change about the deer is he's got pretty short beams for a 200-incher, really.
Really?
They're like 24, which
Let me
is
see
not,
this guy. Hand me this baby.
it's not short.
But
per
that's
se.
where they start to get big.
Right. But when you talk 200-inchers, you know, you're talking 26, 27-inch beams.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, you know, this buck is heavy.
The mass he carries through there is insane.
Dude,
Yeah.
heavy. His brows are crazy. His 2s are good. His 3s are good.
It's Iowa.
I mean,
I think his smallest mass measurement is still over 5 inches.
wow. I can believe that. He's heavy. This is one of the heavier racks I think I've ever held. That's impressive. There you go, Eric. Get your hands on that, buddy.
But then the next day,
He is heavy, ain't he?
I've got an official scoring kit.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
How'd you get that?
I bought one.
I'm just kidding. Yeah, you can just buy them.
Yeah, from the Shed Antler Club.
Yeah.
Because I like,
Oh.
you know, I'm a shed nut. I find a lot of sheds every year, and I tape it. I tape deer for buddies and that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
I usually get pretty close. So I scored him at like 206 the next day, 206 and 2/8 or something like that. And
Whiz, man.
yeah, just a mega. But
Yeah, 209, 206, amazing. And then you took him to the Iowa Deer Classic.
yep. So I didn't enter him in any of the competitions or anything, but I had Cameron Coble score him there, and he was gross 204 and 1/8, and net non-typical like 197 and 6/8 or something like that.
Okay. You know, I'm a measurer. You know, nets I do still think are
For fish?
are BS. They are for fish. So you tell them what the gross score is, but I don't. There's a lot of people that don't understand what it takes to get a deer to net in the 190s.
Right.
Like they just don't get it. Like it. Most of the deer, when you see guys like I killed a 160, I killed a 170, they're netting like
Yeah.
much less than that.
One of my friend's daughters killed a like 201 quite a few years ago, and it netted like in the 60s.
Yeah.
You know, because there was just that much difference.
Bullshit.
Yeah. You got to give the deer the credit.
You got to give them
right.
the credit for what's there.
Yep.
I always thought there'd be a cool way, and if anybody wants to invest, call me. Investors, possibly you, and to make a measuring system that goes off volume.
Water displacement.
But
So-
what I think gets tricky about it is the bases and the skull plate and the variables and that. Like there's a way around it. I just don't know what it is.
So this might be a rabbit trail of a conversation, but I've thought about this a lot too.
Do we need to have this business conversation off the podcast?
I don't know if I do it right here.
Potentially. But I think you have to have a certain area that the skull plate has to be. Has to be so many inches deep, you know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yes, I agree.
Like
yeah.
basically a box that it has to fit in, the skull plate. And then you just give them that credit. And the problem is it's just tough. It'd be tough to do that. The only true way to do it would be to lop the antlers off, Lane. Nobody's doing that.
No,
No,
doing
no.
that. I guess the difference is it's like you got a thick brain skull dude that's got this much thickness in a skull plate versus the dude who's.
Yep. It's tough. The only way to do that would, like I say, would be to cut the antlers off.
I know what you're saying though, like a box. If it fits in that box, there's your score
It qualifies
for
for your score.
that. Yeah.
Yep.
Not a bad idea.
But like I say, there's so many variables in that it's not really possible. I don't think
It's fun to think about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Someday.
Because I'm a nutritionist by day job working for Kent Feeds, and there's a lot of factors nutrition wise that go into growing a deer like this, and genetics wise, and it's
Everything wise.
to grow a rack, let alone a rack like this.
Yeah.
So I'm a gross guy because give them the credit they deserve.
Agreed.
Right.
I agree.
They grew it.
Yep.
Dude, it's a great story. I think you're built for podcasting. Like, you're just great at telling a story, man. And I really enjoyed hearing the story of this buck. You hear a lot. I mean, Eric, how many buck stories have we heard from January?
years?
Well, no, just from trade show season.
Oh,
Not
a
that
bunch.
we complain about the stories, but we've heard a lot of them. So we were like, for a bit, your brain almost need your buck storied out for a bit. But this one did not fall into that pocket of another buck story.
Right.
So congratulations.
I like to talk.
No, dude, you're great, man. And congratulations on this buck. I appreciate your dedication and your passion and respect for such a unique animal.
Yeah. No, I'd definitely say Lee is the textbook example of manifesting by being a good person. You know, like that. The buck you over here, I mean, it was a season of a lifetime, but, we talked about it. You're like, it's never going to happen again. And I was like, if it's going to happen to somebody else again, it'll be this guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
I live and I breathe it, just like a lot of the big deer killers do.
You have to.
Yeah. It
Consumes your life.
consumes my life. And, it's turkey season right now. I think deer during turkey season, that's what I do.
Not Mark Drury.
Yeah, that's
I'm out.
right. Eric knows what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
do you want to, do we have time to break him down a little bit more?
Talk about him, yeah.
Nicholas?
Yeah.
So he,
I'll charge you by the minute now. We're on
sounds good.
yeah, dial 1-800-COLLECT.
We got his credit card information, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So my favorite part about the deers is brows. Those big bladed brows. The brows are both around 10 inches. He's got, I could pull the score sheet up on my phone, but he's got like
Pull it up.
16 inches of abnormals, I think, roughly.
Yeah, and they have to have 15 now to qualify as a Don typical.
Yep. I think it's like 16 or 17. I turned my phone off because I didn't know if it would.
Which you want them to make that if they're going to be near 15. It's
Yeah.
like, just push over 15, please.
Yep. The one G2 is 12 and a half. The other one's like 11. Both G3s are roughly 10-ish. G4s are like 6 and 5. And mass measurements, like I said, all the mass measurements are
Insane.
I think the
Ridiculous.
smallest one might be like 4 7/8 if I remember right. Shorter beams, 24 is still a long beam, but
It's still long, yeah. I mean,
when you're talking, my dad's got a 180 inch typical 10, and his beams are like 28 and a half.
Yeah, that's insane.
You put a 28 inch beam on this deer, and you're like, whoa.
yeah, it changes a lot. And there's a lot in beams that you can't tell. Like, we talked about this a little bit on a side conversation with the Buckstorm boys. It's like, guys are judging a 320 bull to a 330 bull. Like, that could be all beam, and you can't really tell that sometimes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I kind of thought based on the pictures that he had shorter beams, but, 20, like I said, 24 is still a screamer beam,
Yeah, oh yeah.
So,
Them brows, though, man.
A lot of
That's
bucks.
that's my thing. Our brows.
yeah, that's my favorite part about the deer.
A lot of bucks just have 20-inch beams.
Yeah.
I mean, really, like an average
That's like the
deer-
standard.
Yeah, I mean, an average buck wants to be 135. A big buck with nothing special is 135 with 20-inch beams.
Right.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But then you add age, freak genetics, Lee, good people. I mean,
Brandon. Don't forget
Yep,
about
Brandon,
Brandon.
shout out to Brandon.
Yep.
Been saying it. You get this. So
I don't have good enough service. I can't pull.
give me the score sheet later. I'll slap it
I'll
on
send
this.
it to you. Yeah, absolutely. But
So
yeah, once
Beautiful.
in a lifetime deer.
Congratulations, man.
Thanks.
Ants
boys.
and Iowa buck. You're outnumbered in here today.
You are 3-1, Kurt.
hey, you know what? If this was the Rayo WCB series, I'd say some harsh stuff to you guys. But it's good to have all you Iowa boys in here, all you highfalutin Iowa boys, and your good state
I'll
politics.
just wait.
Give it 30 minutes. We'll be on the regular one.
And Doug will be here then, so you're definitely gonna be outnumbered.
Oh, you think your governor's better? Oh, he is.
She.
She.
Shout out to Kim
You
Reynolds.
think you guys got great politics compared to us? Like you guys are less. Well, you are. You think you're good with your? Yeah, we have Chicago.
DNR.
Your DNR's better. Actually, I've had good run-ins with the DNR in Illinois. I mean, that's
If you can find them.
If you can find them, that's a good note. Not a lot of, don't have a big budget here in Illinois, maybe because all them corrupt politics. We're doing the best we can. Okay, all we got's deer hunting. Give me that.
I will say I've got a buddy who lives not too far from here, an hour southwest. He lives in Dallas City, and I've been to his place. I actually, when we were in college, I went and sat in the stand with him during shotgun season, just because there's not much going on. I was tagged out in Iowa, and there's not much to go on.
Something to do.
I came and just sat with him, and there's big deer in Illinois.
I'll tell you
I will
this.
give you that. There is big deer over here.
I've been saying this, and you've agreed in the past. You might not agree on this one. Just
I know exactly what you're gonna say.
I got to bring it up. You got to defend myself here before we close this out. If Illinois adopted the same structure that Iowa has, no one would even care about Iowa.
That's a fact.
But you know what? Just keep caring about Iowa.
I think that they would be equals.
Dude, Illinois has got Iowa beat on all the the records and all the numbers and all that anyway.
Did you enter this in the record book?
I'm actually going to.
Oh, wow.
Just to say that I have a booner in the record book.
That's fair. But given if we did points, one buck state, non-residents couldn't kill a buck over the counter every year, Illinois would stomp Iowa out. Now they'd both be great.
I think it would help a lot if you just did a $1 state too.
I like killing 2 bucks.
Right.
But I agree. It would. Do it, run it in cycles. Do a 5-year deal, and then other 5 years you can kill 2. Then 5 years you kill 1 because you get your big bucks up. Mm-hmm. But
Age structures everything.
Hey, you can dream.
Illinois is broke. We need them dollars. Lee, anything to close out with?
No, not really. Just thanks for having me over here, guys. And
Yeah.
go get your DeerCast subscription, guys.
You're a true believer.
Yeah, I am. I have.
For the
since
record, you are
beginning.
not paid by DeerCast.
I am not paid by DeerCast.
Okay.
No.
I check it every day.
It's $20.
Yeah, it's $20. I check it every single day.
Yeah, think about out there, if you don't subscribe premium, how much dumb stuff have you done for $20? Okay, now save $20
Seriously.
and buy
Yeah.
a DeerCast.
Divide that by 12 per month.
It's not that much money.
Like $1 and something a month.
Yeah,
I
$1
can't-
and change.
I can't do that math.
Buy one less beer, half a beer at the bar.
Don't
half a beer at the bar
Hey, yeah.
every month, and you got it.
don't eat lunch for 2.5 days. You just paid for your subscription. All
Absolutely.
right.
I think, like I said, I think it's a lot of people. It hurts their pride to look to an app, but
It's worth its weight in gold.
it's worth
Oh,
its
it
weight
is,
in
for
gold,
sure.
man.
It's $20, man.
It's
Anything
$20.
to help you
Yeah.
make a better decision.
You know how many times I get hit up about DeerCast track, like you said earlier?
Yeah, all the time. That alone is worth it.
It's dumb. But anyway, just get DeerCast.
Yeah, get DeerCast.
More of the story,
and,
just sign up for
Quit
it.
hitting us up for DeerCast track.
Right.
Spend the $20, you cheap SOB. All right. Josh, you got anything to add?
Congratulations again, man.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks for co-hosting.
I didn't say much, but
Hey,
You're here.
your
That's all that
looks
counts.
made up for it. Eric?
That mustache.
Glad you made it for one.
Yeah, I'm here.
That's it. Go shoot a giant, guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Nobody can see me on this camera. You know what to do. Go shoot a giant. See you on the next one.